thanks again for being available for this interview. Just open it briefly. And before we started recording, we came to a point, all questions are allowed. And we had already a past interview which, due to technical problems, did not deliver a quality that could be published. And we ended in that last conversation at that very point. So I would like to maybe open this conversation because it fits in so seamlessly. So all is allowed, nothing is excluded.
In terms of questions, yeah. Or do you mean, what do you mean by that?
I don't know myself at the moment, it just comes that way. All is allowed, all questions are allowed.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're inquiring with a signposter or a teacher, or you're in a sincere inquiry, all questions have to be allowed. If there's certain questions you're not allowed to ask, you can't really truly inquire. It's like going to church. You can ask the priest what verse the Sermon on the Mount is on, but you can't necessarily ask him, does the God that you preach really exist? So you can't really inquire with the priest. Whereas here you're free to ask any question.
Where does the answer come from?
Do you want an ultimate answer or just a cultural, social answer?
The ultimate answer.
It comes from nowhere. Space-time is an invention of the human mind. So where it comes from is also part of the invention. So the truth is, it comes from nowhere.
And what is nowhere?
That question, Reinhold, won't get you anywhere. It's sort of, you see what, that kind of a question is sort of like a tricky dicky. It's something just to play around with, but it doesn't get you into serious contemplation. Your questions can come from serious contemplation. If you allow yourself to be very deeply serious, your questions will come from there. If I fall into your tricky-dicky question, then we'll only have good laughs, which is fine. But not what you want.
I'm sorry, I did not hear the last 2-3 words.
I think you want more than just a good laugh.
Yes.
The last interview we had that didn't work out too well, something that came up was you were mentioning how you often have been told you'll speak very abstractly or vaguely.
Mm-hmm. That was one aspect. Huh? Well,
is that still a problem for you?
it's not really a problem. It's just a feedback, what comes, and particularly in conjunction with such subjects like this illusionary nature of the things that we tend to talk about.
Reinhold, if you asked yourself right now, what do I really want to understand about life and reality and truth, as though this is your last interview you'll ever have, come from that spot, and then you'll find yourself getting more serious, and you'll realize that this is your chance for a breakthrough.
So when we look into this from that perspective, the question that comes is, what is the best way of transmitting and sharing this? So we have talked about the illusion, mind-created stuff, and we have the experience that many are trapped in this mind-created stuff and are suffering from that.
99.9% of the human population is trapped.
Yes.
In illusions and delusions created by their assumptions, created by language.
So these 0.1% who can see this are faced with a situation, and this is my personal biography. I also was trapped, and maybe I am trapped somewhere. Pardon?
You said the 1% is not trapped?
0.1%, which is not, the signposter said 99.9% are trapped of mankind. So this 0.1% who are not trapped, who see this.
Yes, but that's over the history of humankind. The whole history of humankind I'm talking about. There's only that small fragment that achieved their true nature.
So let us assume I achieved my true nature. Let us assume this. I went through a ordinary life, and somehow it became evident, and I see the situation before it was with suffering, and now suffering is over basically. So there is not really suffering. So on the other hand, there are friends, there are family members, there are colleagues or whoever who cannot see this, who have the old vision, who play the win-lose game, however we call it. So how can it be transmitted, or how can it be taught in the best way? What is your proposal?
Yes, that's a good question. The whole point is you've got to work at two levels, negativia and positivia. That's the vertical and the horizontal. You've got to deconstruct all the assumptions, the beliefs, the conclusions that's already there. You've got to work at that level to deconstruct all the obstructions that keep you from transcending. And the second way is to model by your behavior and the way you talk and what you do, etc. Model your true nature by how you express yourself, by how you express or manifest your true nature. And then you talk, you speak, always talking about the true nature in some way or other. That's called signposting. So those are the two ways you do it. If you leave out either one of those ways, you won't get anywhere. You won't have any effect on the inquirer. See, what happens is a lot of gurus, so-called spiritual teachers, don't work on the level of the cultural social enterprise, which I call the conditioning, the cultural social conditioning or programming. They have to work there, or else the person is caught in nothing but abstractions. And then when they leave the guru, the one that they're getting some support from, and they're feeling less anxious, etc., they fall back into the same old world nonsense. The language of the world, the beliefs of the world, the assumptions of the world, the conclusions of the world. When I talk about the world, I mean the world of human population. So the signposter that doesn't deconstruct totally the cultural social enterprise is doing a lot of harm, because it's leading the disciple, the believer, to take on a whole lot of abstractions. Then when they leave, they're stuck with nothing. They didn't get anything. Is that clear, Reinhold?
For me, it's clear. So that means when, or I reflect what I understand,
Right.
when one is with people working on this subject, so to say, there is a deconstruction of the belief system is required, of the disciples, again, belief system is required.
Yeah, all kinds of them.
Any belief, yeah? So whatever it is.
Yes. And to do that, Reinhold, it's very important to understand that a belief system consists of a lot of structures that's holding it together. So you have to go to the presuppositions, the assumptions that underlies the belief system, and wipe that out completely, so that the belief system then collapses.
What are some of these basic assumptions, yeah? the most common ones that have to be worked on?
One of them is the whole notion of presence, or the I am, the witness, terms like this that are thrown around basically unconsciously at various satsangs by various teachers, very, very abstract slogans, such as there's only presence, or you're not the doer, or terms like this that are total abstractions. And then there'll be 100 people in the satsang or on a retreat, and the guru will say, okay, there's only presence, or there's only a relaxed witnessing, etc. And then all 100 people will have a different meaning of what that term means, such as presence. So no one really knows if they each mean the same thing by that, or even if they mean the same thing that the guru means. And it's just assumed that they all know what they're talking about, so they'll leave the retreat and they'll say, I'm so clear, oh, it's so great. But they don't even know if what they mean by great is what the other person means by great. In other words, that's a common assumption. I don't know if that makes sense. last time, terms that are extremely abstract like that, like presence, awareness, the seer, the looker, all these extremely abstract terms that people don't inquire into, like what specifically those terms mean and if they're really even true. They just accept them and it becomes an abstraction, so they can't really have any profound understanding, like down deep in terms of what the signposts are just saying, like the presuppositions of the belief structures underlying them. Because if you just assume, oh, I know what this guru means by presence, that doesn't allow you to go down deep and uncover the presuppositions there.
So let us assume we do not work in a satsang environment and we just live an ordinary life. So Reinhold goes to work, yeah? Yeah? And how to work there, how to proceed there. And the ordinary people who have no idea about what a belief system could be, they have no idea about spirituality, they have no clue about gurus, but they are suffering. Huh? and Reinhold sees, oh God, if they only knew what to do.
And Reinhold, there is no problem there. You see suffering, but there's nothing you have to do, or there's no compulsion to do anything. The person has to use an AA term, they have to hit bottom, and then they have to be ready to inquire. But they have to also have learned that they can't find any answers in the cultural social enterprise. Going to psychotherapy and counseling and all that, those are only band-aids that work for a few minutes. But they're not lasting. They have no depth to. So the person has to hit bottom and also have the realization that the culture of social enterprise cannot help them. In fact, it'll only make the problem worse. Then they may go and start real seeking. In other words, looking for someone who has walked the journey, who has taken the journey, and they have to find that individual to guide them, to signpost them. Otherwise, they'll spend their whole life going around in circles and suffering all the time. So the whole trick is to find someone and to be aware of what's driving you or me or whoever it is, what's driving me to accept this person as my guru, my teacher, without examining the guru and teacher, especially intuitively. See, a lot of people, the great majority, they're looking for a father figure or a mother figure, somebody to replace mom and dad, or not only that, they realized that their father and their mother damaged them terribly, which has to happen. Every mother and father damages their children. So there are screwed up children coming from mommy and daddy. And so they have to, first of all, get over the idea that they'll find a mother or a father in a guru. That's the last thing they want. They don't want that at all. But they have to realize that. That's why people are so crazy. They fall in love with the guru. And they start devoting themselves to the guru. You know, it's called devotion. That's all nonsense.
That's bullshit. Huh?
That's right. It's like bowing down before a statue. But you see, the gurus like that. It gives them a lot of power. They can charge more. this organism here that you're talking to, you can call me Brother David. My name is David Wolf, so you can call me Brother David if you want, or you can call me the Signposter, whichever you like, or you can just call me Mister. I totally do not charge anybody anything. I never have charged people. That's a desecration. That, you see, what gurus are doing is they're trying to help people, discover their true nature. But that's natural. Why would I charge for something that's natural? That already belongs to them. Their true nature already belongs to them, and I charge for that? Does that make any sense?
For me, this makes a lot of sense. Huh? I'm not talking about making money or something like that. Huh? I'm talking about going to work and seeing suffering, and somehow it's just by a confusion. The suffering is just caused by the confusion. So,
the stuff is caused from believing what language tells you. You see, Reinhold, ultimately, there is no suffering because there's no one to suffer. Ultimately. You have to know that, and that way you don't suffer because someone else is suffering.
I don't suffer because I do not suffer. I do not suffer. Huh? I definitely not. Reinhold does not suffer. But Reinhold sees others in that suffering mode, and Reinhold remembers, oh, that does not feel so good now. And this can be perceived.
But you don't have to you don't have to do anything about it unless compassion moves you. It's pure compassion. Because you see, there isn't anybody. What you see as someone suffering is a delusion or an illusion. There's nobody. There is absolutely nobody.
That's true, I know. But on the other hand, if such a human being suddenly starts exploding and energies come and tears come and I don't know what comes,
Yes.
Obviously this biosystem does not feel comfortable in such a situation.
Well, there you go. The whole point is you only move if there's compassion and they've asked you for help. They have to ask you a question. If they don't ask you a question, then you just observe.
Yeah, that comes. Then questions come, of course. Otherwise, that reaction would not come. So what you basically say, nothing has to be done.
Nothing, absolutely nothing has to be done.
It cannot be done because there is no doer.
Everything is exactly the way it has to be.
Yes.
You see, if you get that point really clear, everything is exactly the way it has to be. And how do I know that? Because that's what it is. That's what's showing up. You see what I mean? When you do something, Reinhold, when you do something, you have to do it. There's no choice in the matter. There's no decision to be made. You have to do what you do. And the proof of that is, that's what you do.
Not to say.
Did you say what to say?
What to say?
Oh, you got it. That's true what you just said. There's nothing needs to be said. But in case you are really sincere about something, then ask the question. maybe you've had a lot of talks with other gurus and other teachers and other signposters. Why don't you ask a question about what you picked up from them, just to see if what they told you made any sense or not?
This is a tricky one in my biography. This is really a tricky one because how to answer? I had many conversations, but only very few physical meetings with such persons. So Skype was often used, and in my special story, and now we are entering in the story thing. There was now I would say a glimpse, which was totally outside of the guru scene. So I started some meditation practices about 8 years ago, and this was traditional Jesuit stuff. So they proposed basically sit still and in a mood of accepting, of gratefulness, and of forgiving, and of being prepared to suffer. And I did this for a couple of years, and about 4 years later then went to a retreat. That was in 2008. And during that retreat there was a moment of apparent surrender. So they somehow touched the point, total surrender, to the divine finally. So they called it divine. And this changed everything. So there were some insights coming, and the main point was being judgmental. Judging is not helpful at all. And this judging energy dropped out. So it was over. And of course I came out of that retreat and did not have any support. So I was on my own. And then I started looking and saw this guru scene. So there was just these internet portals coming up like our one. So we have this Jetzt TV, which is the German version of, I would say, Never Not Here, as it was in the earlier times. So there are many videos available. The internet is full of videos. So that is when I entered into that. So then I started looking, hey, this somehow is close to what I have experienced. So there is no I, or something like that. And people say strange things. And what did I learn from them? There are some. It's basically there are some available who seem to have a similar view at reality, but the I thought still was very active in Reinhold at that time. And in 2009, that was a year after the retreat, somehow this I illusion thing was touched. So there was I watched a lot of videos of J. Krishnamurti. I was on a sick leave for a longer time, and I came in contact with an Irish lady via email, and the first question that she asked was, do you still believe to be a separate individual? I had never challenged that one before. Not really. So, okay, then we did some back and forth email ping-pongings, and after 5 emails it was clear, this separate individual, believing to be a separate individual is just a belief. It's nothing. It's not true. So I could say that was one that I learned from another guru. It was a personal chain of interactions. It was only 5 emails.
Yes. Reinhold, you didn't learn that from another individual. You learned it from the dynamic of
Yes.
penetrating your own organism.
Yes.
So it was your organism that taught you that. The guru or the lady was only a stimulus for you to go in and examine.
Yes.
No one teaches anybody anything. All we are is stimuli that trigger off inner examination, inner observation, inner testing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Otherwise, you see, these disciples of gurus, they're actually putting themselves into terrible traps, and they're damaging themselves by their devotion.
Yes.
They don't understand that the real work is to work inside, observing the organism, testing out all the assumptions and beliefs, etc., of the culture, testing it all out, not accepting any of it. Otherwise, you become a slave. You don't become a disciple. The better word for it is slave. The gurus have slaves.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is the gurus, generally, with few exceptions, are frauds. They're con artists. They're using their slaves for ego development, for possessions, etc., for self-image. You see, Reinhold, the guru wants to look good, wants to sound good, wants to feel good. Those are their motives. And they may think that they need $1 million in order to feel good and look good and sound good. So it's a vicious circle. One of the most dangerous things beside the atomic bomb is the guru.
Yeah, I hear what you say, and to me it's plausible. Yeah, it is about destroying everything, basically. Yeah, for that the truth.
It would be fine if they destroyed everything, but they don't.
Yes, inwardly. Yeah. So.
And people usually, if they go to a guru, they'll close themselves off to any other teacher. They'll think the one guru, because they'll give them authority, like Signposter was just saying. Like, you're familiar with Yuji Krishnamurti? He would destroy all other gurus.
A little louder.
Yuji Krishnamurti would say all gurus are phonies and so on. But I've met disciples of Yuji, people that lived with them, were his closest students, and they were building Yuji up as the ultimate guru, just as much as other disciples. For example, disciples of Adidas, Raj, Dr. John, or disciples of Swami Muktananda. There was no difference. Ken Wilber disciples, people who think Ken Wilber's got it all, Krishnamurti, whoever, they just stick to the one guru, and they're inquiring. They're not really inquiring because they built the one guru up. They projected that they have all the answers or the best map or model. That's been my experience in interacting with disciples or slaves of different gurus.
Yeah, I do not have much experience there. It is just. I don't have a problem with gurus. Not fundamentally. I mean, somehow I believe the energy finds its way, or it does not. I see one can be hooked up. I can see that when one believes and does not do the inquiry within actively. What the signposter said, that the outside triggers the process inwardly. That's the key point. Yeah? And anything that can trigger this inward process, I would say, is fine. Yeah? If so to say in conventional language. Yeah? So to say. Yeah? And I mean, what to say? For me, my objective is to try somehow to. There is an energy that wants to be that trigger. Yeah? So this triggering the inquiry in others. There is an energy. Yeah? When I see suffering, this thing is activated. Yeah? So I see, oh, somebody is hooked up, and now, please, yeah, automatically then try to change the perspective of that person somehow, look at it differently or something like that. This is what usually happens then. But it is so bloody difficult. It is so bloody difficult that it really unfolds itself, so to say, within that person that is stuck. It happens. It happened. I have at least 2 to 3 cases where I can say, yeah, it was successful, and but often it is not. People are not. They just cannot hear it, or Reinhold cannot say it properly. It seems. But as the signposter said, yeah, it happens or it does not happen. It happens exactly the way it has to happen. Yeah?
Exactly.
It's also clear. Yeah?
Yeah. Everything is happening the way it has to happen. So, you see, the only reason people suffer psychologically and emotionally and socially is because of their beliefs and the way they've used language. And they never inquire. They don't inquire into anything that's happening inside them. They don't ask questions to themselves, so to speak. And the greatest gift you can ever be given is to be able to ask questions of someone who's walked that journey before. Because that person, you see, is totally honest, is impeccably honest, and will always speak the truth as they understand it. So that's one thing that you have to have safety. You have to feel safety, that you can trust that person you're talking to. That the person is not going to use you or abuse you for their own ego desires.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's so important not to get trapped in a popular guru. See, it's not that I'm against what is, but I can call a spade a spade. All we have to do is observe, and we know there's something wrong. When you hear the disciple talking about the guru, the way they talk about them, you know there's something wrong. Because they're adoring the guru like they're adoring some god or some power force. They adore them. They project onto them as though they were the only God. They don't know that God is everything. You can get just as much out of adoring a tree as you can adoring a guru or adoring your image in a mirror. I'm saying don't adore anything.
Sure.
None of it's necessary.
Sure.
It's just another fictional game. Just a game we play. You know, back in the earlier years, they used to talk about their psychoanalyst. Well, my psychoanalyst told me this. Now it's my guru told me this. It's a substitute. Pretty soon the gurus will be putting all the psychiatrists and the psychologists and the therapists out of business.
No, I doubt it. I doubt it.
I'm trying to point out to you, it's becoming so common, this guru game. It's all over the internet. It's all over Facebook.
Yeah, for me it was quite helpful to see it, yeah, because I was challenged. Yeah? The beliefs were challenged by it. Yeah? So there is a completely other vision, yeah? And this comes across. Yeah? But I never sticked to one. Yeah? So
Yes.
never.
You kept some of your freedom.
I just left I see the transformation process had already started, so everything was moving.
Yeah.
So the most natural in this moving is stay moving, stay moving. Where are Where is resistance? Where are challenges? And go into that. Go into that. And then in the end, I saw always it's a thought. There's another thought created the resistance, created the tension, created the conflict. Another thought. Oh, another one. And so one after the other was.
Reinhold, when are you going to wear your white gown?
What?
When are you going to start wearing your white gown?
What is a gown?
Well, it's a robe.
No. I did it once, by the way. That was a fun. Yes, that was a fun exercise in Pune, India.
Yeah.
That Osho place. Yeah. I was there last year and had one day.
Also, did he used to wear the white gown?
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't know. No, I don't know what he wore. I don't know.
What is the point of wearing a white gown? You see what I'm getting at? That's another con game. You dress like you're something special.
Yeah.
And you start using the jargon of the Oriental. Satsang, all that nonsense. Why don't we stick to our European, North American language? We don't have to use any of that stuff. It's another pretense. See, it's all a big game. You got to look at those little triggers.
Of course, yeah. The best we could say is call it looking into the internal bullshit. Yeah? That would be my language, so to say.
That's a good language.
It's just the internal bullshit. But this is not very loving, yeah? No, that's the next one.
Yeah, it's impossible to love, by the way.
I know. This is a crazy interview.
Yes. See, love is just a triggering of chemicals and hormones. That's all that love is.
Love is a word, yeah, even that. I don't know what love is. Hormones happen, yeah, so, but is it love? Yeah?
Oh.
I don't trust words. Yeah, that's the next one. I mean, they as Joy said, yeah, the gurus talk about awareness or any other word. Yeah, so one idea in one head shared, yeah, and suddenly we have 200 different understandings.
Exactly.
Now, that is maybe the background of that Old testimony story of building that high tower in Babylon.
Yes, the Tower of Babel.
This confusion, yeah, of the languages. So fundamentally, even touching words cannot be trust it. So it is. I don't know. It is human capability to speak.
Yes.
And then this language mechanism seems to create division, because the words are nothing other but division.
Yes. Yes.
And
the human being is the only organism or species that lives in a thought bubble.
yes.
It's got a big bubble. You live in that.
It is.
The frog,
Totally.
the frog and the toad are much more free than the human being.
Yes. Obviously.
We have no freedom because we live in our thought bubble.
Yes.
And the only freedom will occur when we blow up the bubble. Another word for thought bubble is cultural social prison.
Thought bubble. I prefer thought bubble.
A lot of people too will say statements like you were saying, how it's all just words can't touch it. And what they'll be using that as a con to actually not inquire, because from the absolute point of view, like, words are not the ultimate, but from the inquiring point of view, you have to really become really clear in your communication and your use of words, and to really inquire into language. So you have to use words, and language is basically your tool of inquiring, because we think in language. So I think that's important.
But I would really a little bit. I would like to challenge you on this one. Yeah? What my inward experience is, when I sit and do inquiries, I do it not with words. It is just sitting, and suddenly something unfolds. This is a process which is not even using language. That's my experience. So we can have communications here, yeah, and trigger things, but that's as far as language can go. And signposter, I mean, that's the best word, yeah. Just you can put some triggers and some signs, and then processes are triggered, and they are not in words. That's not my experience. I believed in the past, maybe when I did some analytic work. Yeah? I studied physics. I'm a physicist, yeah? And it seemed that there are words, but when I look exactly into it, there are no words. It's suddenly insight. Yeah? Suddenly it's clear. Another thought, or whatever it is. That's the way it's experienced here.
So are you saying that when you're meditating, you notice when a thought is triggered? Is that what you're saying?
No. When I meditate, I do not even meditate. I don't know how to say it. I just sit still in the morning hours, typically.
Okay.
Yeah. In the early morning hours, often between 3 and 5, somehow. Often between 4 and more often between 4 and 5. It just pulls me out of bed. Something, I don't know. That's natural rhythm. I interpret, but these are words again. I don't know why. I don't know what. And then I sit silent, and then sometimes there are thoughts. So somehow there seem to be sentences, but they most of the time not, I believe, or very weak as compared to the past. So it is almost silent. And then there are some intuitions. Suddenly it's clear. Okay, there was another hookup, and created by a thought or by a belief. Let's call it belief.
Reinhold, what form does the intuition take? How do you know it's an intuition is what I'm asking.
It's clear, suddenly clear.
What's clear?
I would need an example. The hookup, the confusion. Yeah, there are some still there are some confusions in the system. Yeah, so mainly unconscious. Yeah? It is like something bubbling up into a level of consciousness. Yeah?
So what bubbles up?
For example, I can give you one example, and I gave it Joy the last time. Yeah? There was a trauma in me which was like I want that my mother understands me. Yeah? And when
sorry, did you say you wanted your mother to understand you?
Yes, that was a trauma which I saw a couple of years ago. Yeah? And this created pain when this was hit in a pointing exercise, basically. Now I know it was some kind of a pointing or mirroring exercise. This was mirrored, and it created pain, and terrible pain. Yeah? And I went there 3 times, and after the 3rd time it was suddenly clear, obviously evident, this has nothing to do with my mother. Yeah? The background, the origin of this pain was the belief in me that she should understand me. Yeah? Which obviously is a bullshit. Yeah. So, yeah, and so many things which are unconscious or confusions that were faced then afterward. They always came to such suddenly it was there was another belief behind it. I cannot give many examples now. Yeah? It always comes down to that one point. Yeah, there was another belief, or that's it. Yeah,
exactly.
And that's so reliable. Yeah? The only question is always, is there a belief? But I don't even ask this question. It unfolds itself.
Yeah.
Suddenly something is seen. There was that belief. Okay.
Yeah.
But I cannot give examples now, and now nothing comes, of course. Yeah?
All right. That's so important that you understand that, and obviously you do, that for every belief, it's like a pyramid. The top of the pyramid is one belief, but the whole structure of the pyramid is supporting that belief.
I would pyramid.
Let me explain the pyramid. The pyramid consists of all kinds of underlying beliefs or assumptions that supports that one belief that's giving you a problem, maybe. So I'm using the pyramid as a structure of beliefs or assumptions. But we often don't go there. Like you can take the Jehovah's Witness situation. They won't let their children get a transfusion. I don't know if you knew that. Or they don't let their children have a transfusion even if they're dying.
Yes.
Because of one little passage in the Bible, don't drink blood. But they never examine the pyramid. They don't examine anything. But that's the way religion is. No one examines anything.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I see also. Yeah. So what I suggest is to go intentionally into areas where resistance occurs. Yeah? So this is the interesting stuff, because behind there must be a belief. I know already. Yeah? So this is and then then suddenly the belief is seen, and then it's over. Yeah? That's the way it works here. And
also,
yes?
You can't choose for it to be seen, like for an insight to occur or understanding to happen, that sees the bottom of the pyramid, he falls. Like, you don't do that. It's just that there's a higher probability that there'll be an insight when you inquire into the whole structure of the pyramid. But people will talk often as if they did something about seeing the pyramid, or as if they saw. And
the only thing that potentially could be done, potentially, I'm not sure, is maybe bringing the attention to these areas of resistance. That might be the only movement. I don't know how this move, but probably it's also automatic. Once you have tasted this, it pulls you. I cannot see any action. I cannot see any action. No actor. No actor.
There's the signposter is a stimulus for the attention, like the research in neuroscience on attention in the brain is basically attention is controlled by stimuli. Like there's no volition there. So the signposter or whoever, if you're in a dialogue, their stimulus, their information, your neurological system and your attention gets triggered to focus on the pyramid, the beliefs, and then there's a higher probability insight will occur, but you're not doing any of that.
Yeah, that's not the feeling here. So when we talk about Reinhold's story, somehow this whole thing started rolling, and now it rolls. And it seems, So, but in the end of the day, it is the other way around. So it was always the way it is, but it was believed to be other. And this belief was generated by I don't know what, partly by the parents, by how you call it, social, political system or whatever it is that plays a role, or biological stuff. I don't even know. But there's just there was or is still is there's still some unconscious stuff. Probably there always will be some structures. I do not believe that. I believe neither. I do not know. I just do not know if they can be solved all.
Yeah, that's
Probably.
good. You don't, because then you can inquire if you don't know. But there always will be an obstruction there. That's just a conclusion. So you actually would stop the inquiry.
I just don't know. And what I sense is I sit, I get the energy to sit, and then I sit, and then something happens or not, and it doesn't matter. So no expectation. The Jesuit did a fantastic job. Just don't have any expectation. Be grateful. Be prepared to suffer. And
be grateful for what?
For whatever is. For whatever is. Just a positive attitude to what is. That's how I interpret it.
Well, what if there's an earthquake in Japan at months? Tsunami.
Don't judge. I don't judge. So it happens.
Are you grateful for that?
This gratefulness is more an attitude of allowing everything. Let's put it that way. Maybe that. So I would not for something. It is not being grateful for something, or for everything. It's about allowing,
Yeah. Would non-interference be a good word? Non-interference.
One could name it that way. That's the way I understood it. So just don't resist to what wants to show. So that, I don't know how to put it in English words. So don't resist to what wants to show, or to what is, to what.
What arises.
And a good way to investigate whether certain gurus are quote awakened or how advanced they are, they may say things like, I'm detached or non-interference, like we were just saying, and they'll smile and whatnot. But you have to look at their actual lives. Like if that guru was, say, sick with cancer, dying, would they be saying the same thing? Would they look the same way when there's certain events like an earthquake? If they're at the area of the earthquake, are they going to be saying, well, and smiling, it's all awareness, or it's all present, there's no doer? Like, it's important to study the lives and the behaviors of the guru, and if it matches up with what they say, especially statements like, it's all good, it's all peace, they would imply that they're detached and in an enlightened condition.
Yeah, but that's... I cannot imagine any guru who would not be touched by an earthquake when he is there.
Yeah, that's an extreme example, but I mean... like if they get sick or ill,
yes,
or they lose... Most gurus are very, very, very wealthy, and they have most people prepare food for them. They're totally chauffeured, and it's easy for them to say things like no interference and so on.
Yeah, I believe I understand what you try to point. I cannot comment on others. I cannot comment. I don't know how they live, what they do, and what they don't do. And for me, it seems that the body does what it has to do, and diseases and death belong to it. So this will come, and what can one do? I mean, and I don't know. I mean, which examples of gurus do you refer to? Is it? I do not see so many too rich gurus. Are there many? I don't know. I have no clue.
Well, the ones that aren't rich are just starting out.
I have no clue. I have the impression that many of the so-called gurus are not overly rich. I mean, Osho was definitely a person, or a figure who had a lot of money available or could move a lot of money. Yeah? And there are others, maybe Eckhart Tolle, who obviously also can move, and has a lot of money. Yeah? But I could not name many of these really rich and wealthy gurus. I don't know. I mean, no name comes. One could say they are even comparable with Osho or Eckhart Tolle.
Well, Krishnamurti,
J. Krishnamurti.
Yuji?
No.
Adida?
Huh?
Adida?
No, Krishnamurti. Jiddu Krishnamurti had millions and millions of dollars behind him to support him.
Okay.
All I'm saying is that very few of these gurus had to go out and get a job so that they could eat, have shelter, and have clothing. So they talk all about, going to their office, and they complain about people who are having to work and so on. But they're getting all this support. You see what I mean? Yeah. Adida was a multi-millionaire in the sense of all his ashrams. So
you are talking about these, okay. But now when we look into the mass of these guys who appear in the internet today, I believe there are only few who are really wealthy.
Yeah. Well, they're just starting out. They don't want to work, so they think to play the guru game will keep them from having to do any work.
Yeah, but who would follow them? Yeah, I mean, who would follow them? That most people, but most people don't know. But most people do not even know what we are talking about here.
That's right, exactly. That's why they're successful. You see, the poor ignorant masses are desperate for an authority figure to tell them what to do, to tell them how to live. So many people, I'm talking about 99% of the people, want to be told how to live.
Yes.
So that's why the guru is a special character who gets these people to go there. It's quite amazing. It's quite a wonderful game. You could play that game pretty well. Did you ever think you might try it?
Not interested.
There you go.
Not interested. That would not be honest. And so where were we stuck? Gurus. But still, I mean, who goes for a guru? These are not many. These are not many.
People who have suffered a bit and they want to be told how to stop suffering.
They go to the psychoanalyst or psychologist, psychotherapist.
Yeah, but no one tells them that there's nothing wrong with them.
Yeah, but they cannot hear it even when you tell them.
No,
Because they cannot hear it.
that's why I'm saying, Reinhold, that you have to deconstruct the structure that they're in, the thought bubble that they're in. It's the thought bubble that tells them to suffer. So that has to be deconstructed.
Hmm.
So a good psychotherapist, a really good one, will do a lot of deconstructing. But most of them are frightened. You see, did you ever notice that a psychotherapist or a counselor doesn't want to deconstruct a person's religion? They don't want to interfere with that, because that's against the society. Society would get very angry if you tried to deconstruct somebody's religion. But you see, Reinhold, a lot of people are suffering because they are in a religion.
Of course.
There you go.
Of course. That is one of the hard ones. That is one of these pyramid. This is a serious problem, because religion in itself is belief. So they say belief, 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 which is totally the wrong movement. This is the wrong direction. So they run at full steam into the wrong direction.
Exactly.
So
did Troy tell you that he was suffering terrible from religion?
yes.
Yeah. And we only met one day and he was cured. Before that he was taking doctors were giving him pills and everything else. But the problem was religion.
Of course. Yeah.
Doctor didn't tell him about religion, that was the problem. The counselor will say it's your religion that's your problem. They won't tell the truth.
I once said even to the team members of the meditation group that I'm still in. I said, and this is religious, of course. I said, you guys, you believe yourself out of heaven. They cannot hear it. They cannot hear it. They cannot hear it.
But the question is, why can't they hear it? You know why they can't hear it?
It's so precious for them. But I don't know why.
Oh, well, I'll tell you exactly why. Because their belief system gives them security. They believe it helps them survive. It gives them comfort. And it gives them pleasure. That's why. The four things. It gives them security. It helps them survive. It gives them comfort. It gives them pleasure. And it helps them to escape from pain and suffering. That's why they go to religion. No other reason. That's why they go to the guru. Same thing.
Yes, of course. Yeah, but yes. Yeah, but how to break it? I mean, you must have hit Troy in a very good minute.
Maybe you could start a church called the Church of Destruction.
Yes. That's my thing. Yeah. Yeah.
When someone comes to see me, I always tell them that I'm out to kill them.
Mm.
But
Makes a lot of sense.
then I have to explain what I mean by that. I'm out to kill their belief or assumption that they are a separate self. That's what I'm out to kill.
You were asking, or you were about to ask, how you break the chain of looking for security, comfort, survival, pleasure that brings you to the guru or religion. Were you going to ask that? Or?
At the end of the day, that's the question. Not to the guru or the religion, but which keeps them in the thought bubble. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Thought bubble. Well, you got to, metaphorically speaking, you got to put a pin in it. And I'll tell you what the pin is. It's called dialogical enquiry. What we are doing here, the three of us, is called dialogical enquiry. That's a pin to break the thought bubble, little by little.
Okay.
But if the person is not serious and not sincere, then walk away. Don't waste any time.
Yeah, that's clear. It is not about missionary. This is hopeless. Huh? In the end of the day, the readiness to die, I believe, that is a good indicator. So if somebody is really ready to die, then there might be a chance. Yeah? Not all is lost. Yeah? When I was in India last year, I did not go for Osho to India. I went for a German woman. Her name is Dolano, and she worked with Osho, but she developed her own thing, and she has a systematic which has a duration of 30 days in small groups, so 7 people, typically. And the precondition is that the people, before she accepts them, have to confirm in writing that they are ready to die. So she does not even start. And then she has 5 days to do self-inquiry. Who am I? Find out who am I. And then 25 days to liberate mind, and the rest of the time is for questions and answers. And in this setup, she says that 5 out of the 7 members are free after that procedure, which is quite a good hit rate, I believe.
Yeah.
And I have no reason to doubt it.
But you have no reason to believe it either.
Yeah, but also no reason to doubt it. So I met somebody who was in that program, and yes, it was confirmed.
It doesn't sound like a good experiment. If you only have one, if there's only one.
Yes, a very bad statistic. Very bad statistic. But from my experience, what I see when you are ready to die, and when you do an intensive on who am I, a lot of the work is done. So it sounds very reasonable what she propagates. And I've met her, yeah. So I spent some hours with her, and she knows what she is doing. Yeah. But that's just an example, and everybody has to find his own style, and it happens anyhow. But who is ready to die? There are not many. Yeah. There are not many.
Well, if they're ready to die, they're already dead. Because, you see, you can be ready to die. A person can say, I don't fear death, and I'm ready to die. Well, that means they've already died to much of the world, the nature, and all the rest of it. The point is, do they have any radical understanding? I mean, the kamikaze Japanese pilots were ready to die, but they had no understanding.
Yes. Yeah, but I believe when you come to somebody in that guru scene or whatever it is, and this is intensive inquiry. I mean, obviously, yeah, when one does that for 30 days in a retreat situation, and you have to be serious, yeah, otherwise, and that's what you say, authentic questions or whatever. I don't know how you phrase it. That's basically that point. You have to want to know it. Now I want to know it.
It's more important. It's more important when you get to that point in your life that you have to really know what truth is, who you are, what you are, what is reality. Those ultimate questions, when they become the most important thing in your life, then you've got a chance. Your inquiry will be serious and will be fruitful. But if you start asking about, should I eat meat? Or some nonsense like that, should I drink dairy products? Well, that's not it.
Yes. You better drink whiskey and ask the serious question.
Get seriously drunk. I had a person a few weeks back who came to me and asked me, how can I find my soulmate? They were really serious about that question. I told them that you, at the stage you're at, couldn't find anything. And I told them that soulmates are not found. They're created when you find someone at the same level of understanding that you are. And that has to be quite advanced. Soulmates are not for everybody.
I have a language problem. What is a soulmate?
Soulmate is your spouse or someone you're committed to. First of all, a soulmate is one who is seen through the cultural social enterprise, and who you meet, and they say, and the agreement is they commit and you commit to first of all, serving God, knowing God, and then becoming God. That's the process. And that's what a soulmate, the two soulmates do. They become one in the unity of finding that they are God. And that's what they're interested in mostly.
So, I'm not sure if I understood. So, somebody is on the search, and he goes with his soulmate together.
That's right.
Okay.
But they've gotten to the point that they're not searching in the cultural social enterprise for any answers. They see that the cultural social enterprise has caused them their suffering. So that the cultural social enterprise has been wiped out. Now the soulmates, the two soulmates, they can spend all their energy helping each other serve God, know God, and becoming God. That's the whole process.
Yeah. Okay. Now it gets clearer. I remember I had some interaction with somebody in Canada in the past, and what we did. Yeah, that was some soul-mating exercises. Yeah, we had some dialogues and did some diets together, and then some clarity came. Apparently, it seems so. You never know where it really comes finally from. So that would be some kind of a soulmate relationship, and it was about becoming God. Yeah, of course. So looking through the illusion of not being it. Yeah? Okay.
But it's a process it's a process of realizing that your true nature is divine.
Yes.
And there's not two soulmates, that there's just one. True love is unity. The oneness of unity, or what we call the only. The only.
Yeah, but the soulmates are still on the level of the relative. Huh?
What did you say?
The soulmate is on the level of the relative.
That's the level of inquiry. Dialogical
Yes.
inquiry is on the level
Yes.
of the relative. But eventually, it's a process. Yeah.
Eventually, we don't have to talk about eventually. Yeah? Okay.
What's your next burning question?
Not many. I think we are done for today. Anything you wanted to say?
I find that you are a sincere person, and I find that you value the truth. And I find that you are generally a happy person because you've got a good sense of humor. I've experienced talking to you, dialoguing with you. I've experienced that as very enjoyable and pleasurable for me.
Thank you.
Dialogical inquiry can be the most pleasurable thing on earth if it's done by two sincere people.